And we're live. Hey, what's up? I'm Greg. Welcome to Superhero Coding. We are continuing our one game a month series. This is December 2023, part 2, which is we're making a game that is, I'm calling Almost Subway Surfers. There's going to be a game, you go down one of 3 aisles, you collect coins, you jump, stuff like that. Today we're going to work on coins, and we're going to, if we have time, work on the jumping. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right in to the code. Go here, go here. All right, beautiful. So this is where we left off. We've got a couple of big things that have some obstacles. They have this sphere in the middle. They have some things to show that there is movement. I talked about how if those capsules weren't there, you'd have a really hard time seeing anything move. So I'm going to take where we left off. And if you're new, the way this works is the first week's scripts and art and all that stuff, Unity package is available for free on superherocoding.com. For the other weeks of a given month, it's a super, super low fee during that month. After that, it goes up a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate runner 02 and call this runner 03 and double click to enter. All right. So we got a couple of things we want to do. We want to add some coins that will be something we can jump or we can collect. We want to add at this point, we've got 2 scripts that are just not a lot of lines of code. And one piece of code takes an object, moves it. Once it gets past a certain point, it starts it over again. Does the same thing there. The other piece of code is on the player, and it works to move between the 3 lanes. Jump, although right now we can move outside the lanes, and we can, oh, now I'm falling. We can move outside the lanes, and we can also just jump infinitely. So we're going to want to stop that. The easy way to fix the jump issue is putting in a Boolean while we're in the air, and doing a jump only when you're on the ground is easy. Doing a jump when you are doing like a double jump is a little bit more tricky. But see, right now our Y is 0.003 when we're on the ground. So we can do a check to see if Y is less than -0.01, and then we jump. So I want to do that, and then I want to add coins. So that'll probably be the main focus of this video. Next video, because I don't think we'll get to it this time, we will probably make a game manager that collects the points for the coins you're running over and some stuff like that. So let's dive into the code. What we want to go to the jump and move script. So I'm going to double click that just to open it up. All right. So yeah, like I said, the easiest way right now is just going to be to add a Boolean to see if we are currently jumping. So I'm going to make a public bool, and no, it's not private and serialized. If you've watched previous videos, you've heard me talk about that a lot. It's public, it's fine. Public bool is jumping, and by default, that will be false. And here, if they've got an arrow, blah, 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 if move, if space. All right, so is jumping equals true. So we add the force, and we add the is jumping Boolean. Now what we also need to do is we need to check over here, and let's see. We're getting that. I'm actually going to take this piece of code and move it outside. So usually I'll put something where it needs to live, and if I need to use it in other places too, I'll move it outside. So I'm just going to move it up here, and so that I can access it from other places, because here we're going to have another Boolean, or a check on that is jumping Boolean somewhere to see what our Y position, current Y position is. So rather than duplicating the code, just going to do, by moving that up there, I can put it up here. So if is jumping equals true, and I don't necessarily need that. It's better than just always checking the Y position and then setting something. It uses resources better to only use them when you need them. So if is jumping is true, then we want to say if curpos.y is less than 0.01f, then is jumping equals false. So that will let us jump in the air. When we jump, we set is jumping to be true, and then constantly on input, if is jumping is true, because 2 equals to check a value, 1 equals to assign a value. If is jumping equals true, then if current Y position is less than 0.01, is jumping is false. The other thing we're going to need to do is right here, say if they press the space bar, well, to make it slightly less complicated, more readable, what I'll actually do is if is jumping equals false, we could do, if this and is jumping false, but it's fine either way. If is jumping equals false, so they're not in the air, and that could be, in air, but whatever. Then do that. Otherwise, debug purposes, debug log already in the air. All right. And with a double jump, you can, slightly more complicated, but you can check the velocity of the rigid body, and if it's really low, that doesn't work when they're on the ground, because the velocity of a rigid body is really, really low when they're at the ground and when they're at the top of a jump. So that's not a great way to check unless you're trying to do a double jump. Then you check the velocity on the ground, and then you check the distance to the ground, and if the velocity is really low, and if they've only jumped once, then you let them double jump. Then you let them jump a second time. So it's a little more complicated to do double jump. We're going to do that right now. Let's see if this works. So before, I could just keep hitting spacebar and keep going up. Now, that's me hitting this, but so let's do it. Why is it doing it? It's doing a double jump there. All right, is jumping. Okay, I guess it needs to be like is in the air. Is in air. So, because it's not, something's not working right. If the current position, really? I hadn't saved it? Okay. All right, it's probably the last piece in there that I hadn't saved. All right, jump, jump. All right, now it's still not quite working. For the most part, it's working much better. It's still doing it at the very top there. Move and jump. Checking if the current Y position is less than 001. It said is jumping to false. I don't know. Is jumping is false. We can just add an extra little check here. If is jumping is false, and two ampersands means and. If this and that, then do that. Otherwise, already in the air. Let's see if that works better. Stop, take a drink of tea, hit play. That's better. So it was checking once and not setting it correctly. And looks like it's doing it now, even with my constant, and I'm sorry if that's really loud. That seems to be working now. So yeah. All right. I am convinced and pleased that that works. So that extra little check in there, you might not even need this at the beginning. I think we'll do that. Then I don't actually need this code at all. Comment that out. I think that's right. And that's one of those things, you know, you are going to test your game a lot. The goal of that is that you find the issues and fix them before everybody else in the world does. Steam Early Access is not really what we want our game to be. I mean, well, there are too many things. Yeah, that seems to work just fine, and it's a little bit cleaner. There are too many times that it's obvious that a developer has either not tested their game very well at all, or maybe just haven't tested their game. Or, you know, sometimes you know the stuff's in there and you just don't have time to fix it, and that's part of deadlines and stuff like that. But for the most part, you want to optimize your stuff as best you can. You want to find the bugs before the players do. You know, if you do your job right, nobody's going to notice, but that's okay. Because, you know, the game works well and is fun to play. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with jumping, and if you look up why the Mario jump is so awesome, there's a bunch of videos on that. I talk about all the math, and they use fake physics, and it's to a phenomenal result. I mean, you could argue that Nintendo success has been built off of how good Mario's jump is, at least in a significant part. That's not an invalid argument. I don't think anybody that actually knew what they were talking about would argue with that, because it feels really good. If the jump was inconsistent the way that we had it a minute ago, from the beginning, it wouldn't, you know, if I could double jump on Donkey Kong sometimes, that would be terrible. That would be terrible. That game would not have been one of the biggest well-known games of all time like it is. So, anyway. With jumping out of the way, I'm going to hop here. See if anybody's got any comments yet. No comments, no questions. That was good. I like it. All right, back here. So with that out of the way, let's put some coins in. So we've got this sphere. Right now the sphere moves and wraps as well. If it has the same speed as the other items, it will move at the same. There's a couple of ways to get things to move together. You can either make them children, like we did with the capsules, and capsule there, or you can have them move at the same speed. Any of those will work just fine. All these have the same move speed. If we change that to be, you know, higher or lower or whatever, it's going to be fine. It's going to be identical because they're all moving at the same pace. If you want one to move a little bit differently, so let's say this is -20, but you want the sphere moving at, you know, -30. Now that sphere is coming a little bit faster than everything else, which is good. You want something that's a little bit different. These things are on the side are supposed to be more like landscape. Oops, I couldn't jump there. Okay, so that's a bug because it thinks I'm already in the air. Okay, so I do need the initial thing in there too, because sometimes it thinks I'm in the air when I'm not, which is not what you want. So, nope, let's go back here. Let's put that back in. So it never hurts to have a little bit of extra code to make sure that things are working right, because again, you don't want your players to find that. You want to find that stuff before they do. Try that. Everything's still at -20. I'm going to put the sphere at -40. That's going to be significantly different. And I'm going to put the Z at -30, so it's going to go further before it loops around. So it's moving faster, but it will take a little longer to loop, in theory. So if you're watching what me jumping the ball was doing versus the cylinders on the side or the scenery, it makes a, you can tell that this is coming along much quicker. I get over here, you can also see again, it's coming on much, much quicker than everything else, which is good. Something like that, it's probably going to be too fast. I mean, you can do it as fast as you want, but you do not want to frustrate the players to the point where they quit playing the game. If the more randomness is in there, the more it's going to feel like no matter what I do, I can't win. That might attract hardcore players, but it's going to absolutely turn off the casual ones. So, because more randomness equals it's much harder. And it might turn off the hardcore players too, because they'll be like, okay, I know for a fact this cannot be beaten 38% of the time. Paging, they did the math, and they will be there. So I think making it a little bit faster, like -30, when everything else is at -20 is good. And we're going to save that, and we're going to save out our scene again, save it as runner 04, double click that, and let's add some coins. I'm going to take the sphere out for now. We do want something like that, but yeah, so I'm going to make a new, I'll show you the process. So I'm going to make a new cylinder. I'm going to call that coin. Move it up a little bit. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so it's facing the camera. I want it to be squished in. If I move over here and hit F to focus, see it, that's too thin, something like that. That's kind of coin-like. If we want to take this yellow and make it gold and say, oh, this is a gold coin. Doesn't look very gold, it looks very yellow. But if you crank up the metallic map, you crank up the smoothness, it still doesn't look very gold. And that's okay. I'm going to show you why. Talk about why. And these values, you almost never want anything all the way at 1 or all the way at 0. In nature, things are rarely one extreme or the other. So there's a good gold on the side, but the face of it just doesn't, it's not showing up like you would think it would. That's because, so what we see when we think, move the light out of the way. So that's really shiny on the edges. We think that gold is a shiny surface or chrome is a shiny surface. If you, next time you're out and about, look at a chrome bumper and look to see what you're actually looking at. If it was flat, it would be a mirror, except that in the game it can't reflect me back at me. Chrome and gold and all that, what we think of when we think of chrome and gold is really a reflection of the stuff around it. I'll show you what I mean. So we got this coin, right? 1.151. Let's make another one. same material, different kind of object. I'm actually going to make this one not a cylinder. That's what we did last time. So it's going to be a capsule. And again, go from capsule, and that's going to be gold from cylinder. And this will be 90 degrees. Move it over a little bit, and I'm going to squish it down a bunch. So it's almost identical to the other one as far as the width and everything, and it's, you know, it's just about the same. But watch what happens. So if I take a basic yellow and put it on either one, they're going to look the same, right? If I take the gold and put it there, and if I take the gold and put it on the other one, then suddenly you have a much, much, much more interesting coin here. You've got the light reflection, you've got the horizon reflecting off everything. This doesn't, because it is just a flat surface. That's why you're not going to see the goldness of it. It doesn't look like gold. It does a little bit on the edges. If these are rotating around the game, the difference would be significant. You can, you know, crank these up and down to get however much, you know, reflectiveness and that kind of thing that we want. Something like that's pretty nice. And let's crank it a little more. Yeah, that's good. So I want to further demonstrate. I got a script that I pulled off of the Unity. I just Googled, you know, Unity transform or Unity rotate in place. So we're going to take that script. We're going to start with that. I'm going to create a C# script. We're going to call it coin. I could call it, yeah, no, that's fine. We're going to run with that. All right. Delete all that. Paste all this in there. I don't need that. Where I got it from is fine. That's what it does. Don't need that. Don't need that. Put those up there. Doesn't matter. All right, so it's called coin. It's got a game object target update, and it will rotate around the target. So this is interesting, but that's not usually what I'm gonna want. I guess for the sake of demonstration, I can show what that looks like. So let's say we have an empty game object here, and it's moved out there. And then I assign this script to both of these. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna crank up that time as well from 20 degrees a second to 180 degrees a second. Go back, let it recompile. And then I'm gonna drag this to be the target for both of those. If I hit play, now they're both going to rotate around that point. And the coin looks pretty interesting. Now, I could put this to be here and then put it to like 0, 0, 0, and then it's just going to rotate around that thing. I could see a use for having an external target, I guess. But I'm not really a big fan of that for the most part. If I was going to have like a shield rotating around the character, then that would be useful. And so I think I'm going to keep that usefulness while still overriding it for what I need. So I'm going to do a Boolean, public bool, that says rotate around, or rotate in place. In place equals false. And so by assigning a default variable here, that is going to give each of those items their default value of false anywhere the script is already at. And I'm going to say if rotate in place equals true, and we want to do one thing, otherwise we want to do something else. That. And so what we're going to do around in place. So instead of rotating around the target transform position, so this is the transform. It's the transform attached to the current game object. I could probably just delete this and that would work, but to be a little bit cleaner, I'm going to do game object with a lowercase g, which is the game object the component is attached to. And so now, rather than an external item that it's getting from this, it is going to rotate in position around itself if that box is checked. Along the way, I'm trying to teach you how to make extensible code, and again, this is how I code and do things. So we've still got the two things. They both have this external object, which we can call rotate, pivot point, whatever. Plus, they're going to rotate around that. But if I take one of them and I say instead rotate in place, then it's going to stop. It's just going to rotate in place. So either one is going to rotate in place, and I can turn it back on and back off, and I can put one as the child of the other, and have both kind of rotate in place. It's getting kind of wacky because it's stretching it, because the transforms on the parent affect the child objects. So I come out of play mode, all that stuff resets. So what I want to do, I don't need this one. You know what? I'm going to save everything as is right here. And I'm going to duplicate that, go into number 5. Because I like having different scenes. I can go back and I can see where I started, what we did each time. Sometimes don't want that. I don't want the gold from the cylinder. I want the gold from the capsule, and I want it to rotate in place. Doesn't matter that there's no game object there. Doesn't matter at all, because the code that accesses that will never get to it. So now we've got a coin that rotates in place, which is good. The other thing that would have really been a problem is if we'd had these objects on, if we'd had these objects moving with everything else, even if the pivot point was on there, it would still kind of be a mess. Even if I grab all 3 of these and put them on there, it's still not really going to work very well. I'm not going to save that. I'm going to go back to 5. So I've got my gold coin. Gold coin is set to rotate in place. I'm going to move it down a little bit. Put it there. Might want to make it a little bit smaller, I guess. Something like that, maybe. That looks good. And I don't know if we'll get into like instantiating strings of them and stuff or not, but that's a good start. All right, that's there. I can never get it. Well, I guess I can still move forward and backward. We'll have to resolve that later. That'll be for next week or the week after. But the gold coin, I want to have this on the floor, moving as part of it. And I want to make it, I want to add some, a trigger so that, I should probably make it a prefab. So I want to make it a trigger. So a trigger on a collider means you'll be able to detect that one thing is passed with another, and it will pass through, but it's not going to like bounce off of and do like physics collisions. You just have, if that's unchecked and both things have a collider, they're going to hit and they're going to bounce off. If it is checked, you will have them pass through, but you can still detect in code that something has happened. And so that's what we will do next. Void on trigger, enter. For now, we'll do debug log. We collided. Well, we passed through other.gameObject.name. Might say, well, Greg, how do you know to use onTriggerEnter? And I'd say, well, hey, that's a great question. You just Google it. If you look up, detect two Unity objects touching, you're going to find something like that. You're going to find about colliders and triggers and all that stuff. So, or you can just watch these tutorials and I'll teach you. So now it's attached to the floor, and and so let's do this. Let's make a few of them, and we will so I'm going to, let's put it in X of 0, and that's okay. Height off the ground, I guess. So I'm gonna, and then our XYZ scale is fine. I like round numbers, but I like to do 0.5, 0.1, 0.5, whatever. It doesn't matter. And let's do, I'm gonna duplicate that, and I'm gonna move it, 2.5. I'm gonna duplicate that and say plus 2.5. Duplicate that and say plus 2.5. And then duplicate that. Paste that in. So there's 5 of them. And we can create an empty game object called coins. Grab that, drop that there, and put that there. And then I can move it. They are going to wrap with the object, so we want them somewhere kind of in the middle. So they should be on that. And then I want to look at the whole thing of that. I'll even duplicate it again and move it back a little more and put them in the other lane, which I think will be at like 0. Oh, there. And that's good. It's going to wrap around. It might wrap before they're done. It's fine. And then I'm going to take one of these, move it back here, move it to be onto that object. And we could do one more and move it up here and move it over there. I'm just eyeballing all of this because right now I need to find out if this is fun at all. That's important. So every time now we should have a we pass through blah blah blah. Let's try that out. So there. And what you can also do is you can make the coins disappear. There's different ways to do that. So it looks like they're there. It's fun-ish. Not super challenging, but it's not supposed to be yet. No, we're only cycling through 2. We never get to the one that has it at the beginning. That's fine. So I'll take that and move that over here to that lane. And this one doesn't matter at all, apparently. I know, this one. I think that one doesn't even need to be there. So we've got this, we've got that, we've got that. We're grabbing coins, we're grabbing coins, we're grabbing coins. I think it's just there at the beginning for a minute. It's fine. All right. So yeah, if we want to, once we debug log, we can do destroy game object, and that will destroy. If we did other dot game object, that would destroy the thing that this coin collided with. Instead, we want to do this game object this component is attached to. Now, it's not a great practice to destroy your objects, especially if you're going to instantiate a bunch. But with this, it's not going to matter at this point. As I collide with them, they disappear, and there's a few left. There's 2 left. Now they're all gone. Nope. 2 left. Okay, it's actually resetting before it gets to the point where I can hit them. So I need to work on this code a little bit. Or I could also, if I wanted to, I could set a move and wrap script on the coins. Let's do that. Let's take another set of coins there, move it out here, and we're going to add, I'm going to take the code here, copy the component, obstacle move and wrap. I'm going to paste as new, paste component is new, and now it will also move and wrap with the same speed as the others, which puts it right in the middle of stuff. But if I do it faster, then those coins now come zipping through, and I gotta move around to get them all. So yeah, good to know that I can never ever touch these last 2. Can't touch this. So what I would do is just delete number 3 and 4 at that point. It's a little hacky, but you know, our goal right now is not to have the most perfect project. Our goal right now is to get something up that's simple, that's fun, that's playable. Is it a ton of fun right now? No. If we put in some obstacles and things we've got to get around, then it would be a little more interesting. Maybe some hurdles we have to jump, something like that. You know, it's not perfect. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be a simple game that I can build in about 4 hours, and a simple game that you can build in about 4 hours. So, because the key is trying to get something finished. It's so hard to finish projects. That's why I'm doing this 1 game a month, to show you can start 1 game a month, you can build 1 game a month, you can finish 1 game a month in a few hours. I mean, you know, we had 5 weeks last month, 5 Thursdays, and so we had 5 lessons, but they were still probably only about 4 hours, because I'm trying not to make these an hour. I could just straight stream for 4, 5, 6 hours and build a game from scratch, because I've done that. I mean, not streamed, but I've done it. It's not a big deal. I enjoy doing it, good at it, but I want to break it up so that you can see what I'm doing, so that you can learn from it, so that you can do it yourself, so that you can keep up, so that you'll have time to play with things, time for it to make sense. So would love for a hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching on live or replay. I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm Greg. This is Superhero Coding. Get the code at superherocoding.com. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.